The Panthers have some decisions to make. Who will make the initial 53-man roster? I'll tell you right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council. We're beginning again next Wednesday. The weekly Wednesday mailbag is here throughout the entirety of the regular season, meaning every single Wednesday. I'm answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is either at me or DM, and of course, follow me on Twitter at Julian Council to get those questions into me for next week's show. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. The Panthers have until 4 p.m. on Tuesday, August 27th. That is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to cut their roster down from 90 players to 53 men, the initial 53-man roster. It is not the final 53-man roster, as there will be changes after cutdown day. The Panthers will cut guys that make the team on Tuesday, come Wednesday afternoon after they place some waiver claims, as they're going to place waiver claims. They have the top waiver wire priority through week 4. And I'm guessing the team that was the worst team in the NFL last year, that still has some questions about depth and there's some injuries at some spots, is going to want to add to help the team early on this season. So expect changes to be made from what I'm going to project today and also what you're going to see at 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. So let's go ahead and get into it. My initial 53-man roster projection. And of course, we're going to start off with the offense, starting at the quarterback position. The Panthers, I do not think, should keep 3 quarterbacks, but will they keep 3 quarterbacks? And the answer is no. Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, those are the 2 quarterbacks here in Carolina this season. Of course, Bryce will be the starter. Andy Dalton will be the backup. We did not see Andy at all in the preseason. He was dealing with a calf injury, and I don't think that's a problem at all. Seems like he's fine. Talked to Carla Gebhardt on the broadcast on Saturday, said if this was a regular season game, I would be ready to go. Just wanted to be cautious, and that's been a theme since the spring with this coaching staff and training staff. They don't want to push it to the limit with any of these guys. So Andy Dalton, he's fine. He's back on the roster as a backup. And Jack Plummer, he did look good on Saturday. And I do give him and Dave Canales on an offense coaching staff a ton of credit for getting him to look like a playable quarterback on Saturday after 2 weeks ago on that Thursday night opener against New England, albeit Badara Traore really struggled at left tackle and basically torpedoed anything they could do offensively. Jack Plummer did not look good in that game, did not look that much better, but he did look better against the Jets. And then on Saturday against Buffalo, he looked like somebody that is worth keeping around as a developmental quarterback, but not someone worth keeping on the 53-man roster when the Panthers have other holes that they need to address once cutdowns are made and the waiver wire is open. So cutting Jack Plummer, but would like to see him sign back to the practice squad as Panthers can continue to develop him, and possibly he can be a backup to Bryce Young moving forward into the future. Running back, the Panthers are going to keep 4 running backs, in my opinion. Chuba Hubbard, he is RB1. Miles Sanders, he was not released back in the spring like many thought the Panthers may, or at least wanted to see, but with a $2 million roster bonus, fact that the Panthers weren't going to save much by getting rid of Miles Sanders, and that they can just run him and Chuba Hubbard into the ground and get rid of them after this year, as Chuba is a free agent. Miles, there's an out in this deal. That sounded appetizing for a team that wants to be stubborn about running football on offense. So Chuba Hubbard, Miles Sanders, they're still here. Raheem Blackshear We did not see him at all in the preseason. He's been limited also throughout training camp with some undisclosed injury. He's still the primary kick returner. We saw Amir Smith-Marset in that role throughout the preseason. Blackshear, I'm going to take him to make the team still, even though we haven't really seen him. And that's something that concerned me, but having conversation seems like he's still going to be fine. So Raheem Blackshear here for special teams. And then Mike Boone. He'll also be on the team this year. Someone who can help be that up back and blocker on kickoff return, and someone who they've liked also running the ball. He'll be on the team this year. Did not expect that coming into training camp, but after having conversations even about a week or two ago, Mike Boone was somebody that I was told is going to make this team, at least in the interim, as Panthers still have second-round running back out of Texas, Jonathan Brooks, on the non-football injury list. He's on that list because of the injury suffered last year at Texas where he tore his ACL. And because it happened prior to him being in the NFL, it goes on the non-football injury list. He'll be back possibly week 3 or week 4, as Dave Canales told us a couple weeks ago. But watching him walk and just the fact that he hasn't really even been out there, hard to believe that that will be the case. We'll see. They're not going to rush it. That's why they're keeping Chuba and Miles Sanders. That's why they're bringing in Mike Boone as well. And that Raheem Blackshear, I think, still on the roster. They're going to give him time to be ready. So maybe in the second half of the season, we see Jonathan Brooks. Possibly the timeline that Dave Canales gave us is the correct timeline. We will see. But Jonathan Brooks, he continues on the non-football injury list. And then they're going to cut Jaden Sheardon. They already cut him before. They'll cut him once again. They keep 4 running backs. Wide receiver. This is where it gets interesting for me to try to figure out who they're going to keep and how many they're going to keep. I think they're going to keep 6 wide receivers: Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo. Those 4, very easy to figure out that those are the guys going to be on the roster. Johnson's going to be the number 1 receiver. He's going to play the X, be that first read. Adam Thielen playing back in the slot. Those 2 are going to be the guys that Bryce Young really leans on this year with their veteran experience. And Xavier Legette has not so far impressed. He had the injury back in the spring with the hamstring, had the foot injury during training camp. We barely saw him in the preseason, got 1 target, dropped out on Saturday. It's been disappointing to start, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And the Panthers want this guy to be around for a while. He needs to go figure something out soon, but it's not like they were expecting him to be their marquee go-to guy. That was always Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. Give Legette some time. He's got to get healthy. He's got to get used to the speed of the game. May take until next season. I don't want to say that and alarm you, but it's possible that's how things shake out. Jonathan Mingo has looked better. Still not necessarily the biggest Mingo fan as of this time, but there's still a chance for him as he's the wide receiver 3. Now, after that, Sam Pinckney, Mike Strawn, those guys, I'm cutting them. They're not making the team. I'm looking at 4 guys for 2 spots: David Moore, Jalen Coker, Terrace Marshall Jr., and Amir Smith-Marset. Now, TMJ is someone who the Panthers, according to Joe Person, want to trade. And this is something I had heard even before Joe went out there publicly with it. And I think it's already kind of been something that's been bandied about. But the Panthers want to move on from Terrace Marshall Jr., but they want to get something in return, and they need to do that before Tuesday afternoon. I would think on Monday, as I'm doing this Monday morning, it's 10:01 as I'm recording this, the Panthers would like a deal to be done possibly this afternoon before they get to Tuesday. But I don't know if that's going to happen. He looked good against the Jets in joint practice. He looked good in that preseason game against New York. Looked pretty good even on Saturday, scoring a touchdown, nice catch and run against the Bills. I don't know if it's going to happen for Carolina. There may be a wide receiver needy team. I'm sure there is. And the Panthers are actually one of those wide receiver needy teams that may be desperate enough to give the Panthers maybe a corner or an edge rusher for Terrace Marshall. And I think that's kind of deal they would be looking for, as we saw with Michael Barrett being traded out last week so they could get Mike Jackson, a position of need for Carolina where they didn't really have much of a need for Barrett, as they already had a bunch of linebackers there who can also play special teams in the interior at that linebacker position. I'm cutting Terrace Marshall Jr., though. I don't think they're going to get a deal done. And even if they do get a deal done, if they get a deal done, he's gone. If they don't get a deal done, he's also gone. I just don't think a guy that you want to get rid of, you want to trade, you're going to keep on the active 53-man roster, because if he doesn't get traded now, is someone really going to turn around after a couple of weeks and try to come back and get Terrace Marshall Jr.? I don't think he has a market. And if he does, well, he's not going to be on the team. If he doesn't, I still don't think he's going to be on the team. So he's gone. David Moore, Jalen Coker, ISM for the final 3 spots. Amir Smith-Marset had an ankle injury in that game on Saturday. And that is bad timing for someone who is battling for a roster spot. We talked about this with Lamar Jackson last Monday. That was a shock to the system for all of us. Someone who looked like he was going to be the third corner for Carolina until they made that trade. They were always going to make another move anyways, but somebody you felt was going to be on the roster at corner, he gets injured and the Panthers move on because he's a back of the roster guy. And I could see the same thing happening with Ihmir Smith-Marsette. Now, I don't have the information of how significant that injury is, but it didn't look great. He did walk off, and that is a positive, but there's other guys on this roster at his position who can do what he does. So I'm taking David Moore as a punt returner and kick returner along with Raheem Blackshear over ISM based off of that injury and also the staff having that relationship dating back to his time in Seattle, even last year with Dave Canales as the OC, Brad Idzik as the wide receiver coach down in Tampa Bay. And then the final guy, just based off of the opportunity that is there, and we talked about this going into training camp, Jalen Coker. Didn't really feel like he was going to make the roster, had conversations telling me probably not going to make the roster, but looked good on Saturday. And the fact that they're trying to move off Terrace Marshall Jr., that Ihmir Smith-Marsette is injured, and Sam Pinckney, Mike Strawn probably weren't going to make it anyways, I'm going to go with Jalen Coker for now. And I say for now, it's possible the wide receiver room looks different from 4 p.m. on Tuesday by the time they get to Labor Day on Monday. But Jalen Coker, that's a guy where if they do cut him, I think they're going to have a tough time getting him to sign back onto the practice squad, as he was somebody that a lot of teams wanted to sign as an undrafted free agent to the Panthers in order to protect that asset, someone they still want to develop. And I was asked about this on the mailbag recently. Wouldn't the Panthers be better served taking a young player like Jalen Coker instead of having someone like Terrace Marshall Jr. around who they already know what they're getting out of him and also want to move off of? And the answer is yes. So Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, David Moore, Jalen Coker. Those are the 6 wide receivers I'm taking here in Carolina. Not the best wide receiver core in the NFL, but there's at least 2 guys. Unlike last year, there's only one that I think the Panthers and Bryce Young in particular can depend on this year. Tight end. I'm taking 4, pretty simple. Tommy Trimble, Jadavion Sanders, Ian Thomas, Jordan Matthews. Those are the 4. Felipe Franks, Jacob Hollister, Jesper Horsted are the guys I'm going to cut. I would think that Felipe Franks, who has acquitted himself quite well, should be on the practice squad. Jacob Hollister, former Seattle Seahawks, should also be someone that they try to bring back onto the practice squad as far as that goes. But yeah, Tommy, he's going to be tight end 1 this year. Jadavion Sanders, who's gotten a lot of reps throughout the preseason. Whenever Ian Thomas is back, he's going to have to rotate there with him, but on passing downs, they're going to want him out there. And I love to see that second play of the game on an opening drive on Saturday, Bryce hitting JT Sanders for a nice first down. So cool to see that. Good to see him involved in his growth and development over the course of training camp and the preseason. That's a guy that can be an asset for him this season. And that may not have been the case had Trimble and Ian Thomas been available. Maybe it would have, but he wouldn't have gotten the reps that he's gotten the last couple of weeks. And then Jordan Matthews, great story, guy who decided he wanted to go to tight end when he was playing for San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan told him, go ahead, do that. You're just going to have to add some weight, and you're also going to have to be at the same speed you are now as a wide receiver. He has had a long road, and now he's here on the roster, and I love it for him. Great to see. So those are the 4 tight ends. And then offensive line. This also shook out pretty simple for me. At left tackle, Ike Ekwonu. Left guard, Damian Lewis. Center, Austin Corbett. Right guard, Robert Hunt. Right tackle, Taylor Moton. Those are your starters. Brady Christensen is your 6th offensive lineman. Josh Nyman now off of the PUP list. He is the swing tackle. Chandler Zavala, did not see him making the roster when camp started. I thought it was going to be Ricky Lee. And the way that he's performed, where in that first preseason game, that backup offensive line, that man was not a liability. Last year, he absolutely was. Now, was it against the ones of New England? No, but still, Chandler Zavala played well. He went down with that hamstring that was significant. Turned out it was not. He started again on Saturday against Buffalo, and he came out with the starters that were available that day, and that solidified it for me. Chandler Zavala, he's back once again, the 4th-round pick out of NC State a year ago. And then Cade Mays, he gets the final roster spot right now, dealing with a sprain of his AC joint in his shoulder. He'll make the team over Ricky Lee, Jeremiah Crawford, Tyler Smith, Jack Anderson, Mason Brooks, Ike Botker, I don't know, Andrew Rame. Those are the guys who get cut. Ricky Lee, I would expect to be on the practice squad. I would also think that they want to keep around Andrew Rame, who did start for them at center on Saturday afternoon. It's a possibility that he may make the team over Cade Mays, but I think they're going to stick with Cade Mays' experience over Andrew Ram, who should be someone they want to continue to develop. So that is the offense. 25 guys making it on offense, 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 4 tight ends, 9 offensive linemen. Defensively, how many will they keep? Well, you do the math. Got to have 3 on special teams. So 25 on defense. Who will the 25 be come 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon? Well, I'll tell you here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. This has to be something that you want. $5 bet. You can win money. Like on Saturday, I bet on Georgia Tech. Bet $5. I won money. And I also get 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. And I already had YouTube TV, which I love. So this seems pretty simple, y'all. Not all of you watching, listening to the show live in the market. You can't always watch the Panther games. Now you can, and all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Decisions. Dan Morgan, he's got decisions to make. Brett Tillis, he's got decisions to make. And Dave Canales has decisions to make as Panthers need to figure out who the 53 men are going to be on the roster by 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. 25, I believe, will be on offense, and I believe there'll be 25 also defensively here in Carolina this year. Defensive line, this was low-key a serious problem for the Panthers last year outside of Derek Brown, who was magnificent, who is still magnificent, and I think will be a Pro Bowl candidate again. And maybe if this team is better, could possibly be an all-pro candidate as well. So I'm thinking the Panthers are going to keep 6 defensive linemen, Derek Brown, Shai Tuttle, A'Shawn Robinson. Those are the 3 starters. A'Shawn Robinson coming in, replacing Deshaun Williams, should help the Panthers when it comes to stopping the run. They could not do that a year ago. That was a problem. This should be better. Thanks to A'Shawn Robinson coming in. After that, 3 other guys I think are going to make the roster. TJ Smith out of Arkansas, 3rd-year pro. I was surprised early on being at training camp and seeing him rotating in with the ones. I'm asking who's this TJ Smith guy? This was not someone who I had marked as someone I thought was going to make the roster. And what do you know? He was rotating in, had a sack in that preseason game against New England, had a sack again last Saturday against the Jets, and made it very clear he was going to make the roster. So he's on it. Nick Thurman, who really stepped up at the end of last season, he's going to be back on the roster. And then after that, it was difficult for me to decide whether to keep 5 or 6. I could see them only keeping those 5. But looking at just how the numbers are going to shake out elsewhere, I do think they keep a 6th for now. Now, Jaden Cromedy injured his ankle, an older prospect, but somebody they just drafted. I don't know if they want to punt on him just yet. They did punt on Michael Barrett, who was a 7th-round pick just last week. I think with the ankle, maybe they use this as a redshirt year for him and just place him on season-ending IR, which I believe is something they could do. If not, they cut him. Then they bring him back onto the practice squad. But they're going to cut Kenny Dyson. They're going to cut Derek McClendon. They're going to cut Ulu Ale, Walter Palmore, and Jaden Peavy. And then the final guy who makes the roster is LeBron Ray. We did not see LeBron Ray at all in the preseason. We did not see him that much in training camp. Some undisclosed illness. Don't know what it was. But I'm going to take him just based off of the numbers and how things are shaking out elsewhere on the roster. Outside linebacker. I got them taking 4. I just don't see more than 4 guys right now, just based off of the injuries and who else they have there. Jadeveon Clowney, he's, of course, going to be right there as a starter. DJ Johnson, I think, right now would be the starter. Week 1 in New Orleans, got his first sack as a Panther on Saturday against the Bills. Also had a pressure that almost led to an interception. Good to see that development. Ajero Vero, someone who really loved him last year, big reason why he was even drafted in the 3rd round by the Panthers. He has pointed out that DJ Johnson's looked good as he's continued to develop. So DJ Johnson, Caleb on Chason, who they signed for agency, he would be the 3rd guy. Then the 4th guy, Eku Leota, looked great against New England. didn't have the best performances the last couple of weeks. I know he was one of the lowest graded guys for the Panthers when looking at how things played out for them against the Jets. And then this past weekend, pulling up the game report right now on Pro Football Focus, where did they have him at? He was 25th. So didn't have the best performances in his final games in the preseason, but based off of the fact the Panthers just don't have that many guys right now, I have him on the roster now. This is a obvious candidate of someone who makes a team and then the next day is not on the team because the Panthers added somebody else to that room, but maybe they want to have 5 outside linebackers, and he's shown the ability to get pressure on the passer. Cutting Luigi Villon and Cam Gill. Cam Gill, I had him on the roster initially when we started training or right before training camp because he had been a special teams guy in Tampa Bay, also was a pass rusher. But the fact that he was not healthy throughout the entirety of it, came back, had a sack on Saturday, but then it immediately got injured. Can't have him on the team. So he's cut. Luigi Villon, he's gone. And then right now in PUP, DJ Wonnum, no idea when he's going to be back and ready. Have to be at least after week 4 if he's going to be on the PUP list starting the season. Amari Barno, same thing, a torn ACL. No idea when he'll actually be ready. He'll have to miss the first 4 weeks. And that puts Panthers in a precarious situation with a vitally important position that is edge rushers. So Jadeveon Clowney, DJ Johnson, Caleb Jason, and Eku Leota, those are the 4 at outside linebacker. Inside linebacker, I'm taking 5. Shaq Thompson, he's back after breaking his leg last year. Josie Jewell, he is the other starter there at that inside linebacker position. Trevin Wallace has really impressed. He's been the most impressive, I think, of the rookies so far. And going into the year, I would have thought that Xavier Legette was going to be the one that was going to have the biggest impact. But right now, based off of what we've seen, it would either be Trevin Wallace as a backup, who I think is going to get snaps there behind Shaq and Josie. It'd either be him or JT Sanders, who has also gotten the opportunity to play a lot at tight end based off of the injuries in that room. So Trevin Wallace so far looking like a good pick by the Panthers. He is the 3rd linebacker. Clyden Cherlis, he also looked really good in the preseason, and he's one of their best players, I think, in that game against the Jets last Saturday night. He's on the roster, can also play special teams. Someone who the Panthers picked up off of waivers last year to be a special teamer. He'll be that again, but also someone who they can play at linebacker and feel, I think, decently good about. And in the last one, it's Chandler Wooten. And Wooten's been on the team last couple of years because of special teams, and he makes it again this year because of special teams, but also because of injuries. Cam Gill, who we talked about, special teamer, got injured. Look at Tay Davis as well. He got injured. So because of the injuries, and Sam Franklin Jr. as well, those are 3 core special teamers who I thought would be on the roster who are all injured, and that allows for Clyden Cherlis and Chandler Wooten to now find a spot on the roster, at least until Tuesday. We'll see after that, but I got Chandler Wooten making it, cutting Tay Davis, cutting Aaron Beasley. Corner, this is where it also gets a little interesting. I'm going to have the Panthers keeping 5. J.C. Horn, Troy Hill, Mike Jackson, Cha Smith-Wade, the rookie out of Washington State, who they are looking at as someone in the future can play that nickel spot behind Troy Hill this year. But then next year, once Troy Hill likely moves on from Carolina, if that's what happens, he could be back once again if he plays as well as he did last year and how well he's played so far throughout camp and the preseason, at least that one preseason game, that one drive. But Cha Smith-Wade is who they want to have as that nickel playing the slot moving forward after this season. So JC, Troy, Mike Jackson, Cha Smith-Wade. Dane Jackson is going to go on IR to start off the season. A new rule in the NFL where before you had to carry a guy on the active 53, then place him on IR. If you place him on IR before the season, he was done for the year, which is what I'm talking about the Panthers should do or potentially could do if a guy like Jaden Crumedy, who they drafted, just keep him on IR for the year, just redshirt him. And I think with this, now with the new rule where there's 2 guys that you can designate to return from IR, and that would happen after 4 weeks into the season, I would think that Dane Jackson is someone the Panthers are going to put on that. It would make a lot of sense given the timeline where it's about 10 days ago, Dave Canales told us it's going to be 6 weeks for him, and that puts Dane Jackson right there on that Thursday heading into that weekend against the Bengals in week 4. Hard to believe he would play in that game. So go ahead. You got Mike Jackson here. That was showing the Panthers knew that they were going to be without Dane Jackson for what they already called a significant amount of time, but they knew that early on in the season, they need to go out there and get another corner. Could not wait until roster cutdown dates to make that decision, go get their guy, and they've done that. So Dane Jackson takes one of the 2 spots on IR that is designated to return. The 5th guy, got to find someone else to do it. Willie Drew, don't think it's him. Chris Wilcox, don't think it's him. Quadre Mosley, don't think it's him. It comes down to DiCaprio Bootle and Deshaun Jameson. Deshaun Jameson can be a returner. And I did bring up the fact that I think that it's going to be David Moore, not ISM, based off of injuries. And you got Raheem Blackshear, who's not really been out there. It could make sense for the Panthers to want to have Deshaun Jameson as somebody that they help him out in special teams in that manner. I think, though, DiCaprio Bootle is a better player, has been a better player throughout the preseason and training camp. Also can help him out in special teams, maybe not as a returner, but I think they need more corner help than they need another returner right now. So I'm going to take DiCaprio Bootle as that fifth corner in Carolina, and likely someone who does not stick around once Dane Jackson comes back. Safety, also going to take 5, as I'm just counting safety. I'm counting corner. 10 defensive backs, so 5 safeties. Xavier Woods looks like he's tracking towards being ready to go week 1 with that groin injury. Jordan Fuller, Nick Scott, those 3 are seen by Jero Vero, the DC here in Carolina, as starters, all co-starters there at safety. And if Woods is not available, like we saw on Saturday, Fuller, Scott, that would be the week 1 safety pairing. But those 3 safely on the roster. Mentioned with Dane Jackson, designated to return off of IR. Sam Franklin Jr., same case with the broken foot that was suffered, I believe, on the second day. No, it was not the second day. It was on third day of practice. They were at the Bat Together Saturday inside Bank of America Stadium. Broken foot. They did say that he will be back at some point this season. One of the core special team players for this team. He's going to be designated to return off of IR. So he'll take the second of those 2 spots where he'll have to be out at least for 4 weeks, but I think it's probably going to be longer than that anyways. So Sam Franklin Jr., he will not be on the 53, but he'll be on IR, but designated to return off of IR at some point this season. Now it comes down to 4 guys for 2 spots. Alex Cook, Damani Richardson, Jamie Robinson, Rudy Ford. Jamie Robinson, I didn't think impressed last year, and I don't think he's necessarily impressed that much so far, so I don't think he's going to make it. And it comes down to Alex Cook, who the staff really liked last year. He actually played over Robinson once he was signed off with the Giants practice squad. Damani Richardson, who had an amazing week the week prior when the Jets were in town, where he had a pick off of Bryce and off of Jack Plummer on that Monday, that had an interception in that game on that Saturday. He's a good player. And then Rudy Ford. Like, there's 7 guys that all have reason to be on the roster. And I just think that with Rudy Ford being a veteran, that vested veteran where the contract is guaranteed, and that he's not one of your top 3 guys, and I just don't think it makes the most sense to keep him. So I'm going to keep Alex Cook, who they love, and I'm going to take Damani Richardson, the undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M, to make the roster as well. So those are the 5. Xavier Woods, Jordan Fuller, Nick Scott, Alex Cook, Damani Richardson. They're making it at safety. So 25 on defense, 5 safeties, 5 corners, 5 inside linebackers, 4 outside linebackers, 6 defensive linemen, and then special teams, 3 players. Your kicker is Eddie Pinheiro, who suffered an injury on Saturday, one to monitor, but it's apparently not that serious. Your punter is Johnny Hecker, and your long snapper, once again, JJ Jansen forever. So those are the 53 men who I believe will be on the initial 53-man roster. Now, I say initial because the Panthers will make some changes to it probably by Wednesday, Thursday, as they're going to place some waiver claims. What positions are they most likely going to make claims for and add to? Well, I'll tell you that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. It's always important to remember that the roster that will come out on Tuesday afternoon by 4 p.m. Eastern time is the initial 53-man roster. The roster, it will change by Monday, and really by Wednesday. We'll see players that made the team who will not be on the team come that Wednesday afternoon. It's possible the Panthers could bring it back onto the practice squad. It's also possible that they don't stick around. We saw it last year. We've seen it in the past. Just understand that this is not a final roster. This is an initial 53-man roster, and what you see on Tuesday will not necessarily be what you see going into next Friday as the Panthers prepare to travel down to New Orleans to face off against the Saints. Now, a couple of positions, looking at the waiver wires, Panthers have the top waiver wire priority claim through week 4. They're going to add players. And there are spots where I think they still should look and would not be surprised at all if they do take players off of the waiver wire from those certain positions. So what positions are those? The number 1 has to be outside linebacker. This is, quite honestly, a bad edge rushing group. the worst in the NFL. And they were the worst in the NFL last year at pressure rate, at sacks. And they had Brian Burns, who I think is excellent. Would have loved to have him around, but he's not here anymore in Carolina. He's in New York, and the Panthers have brought in Jadeveon Clowney to replace him for this season. And potentially next, we'll see how long he sticks around. But this is not a good edge rushing group at all. Like Clowney, I don't think he's going to have 9.5 sacks again this season. I think he can be more of a 6-7 sack guy, and that would be good for the Panthers. Now, they would love for him to explode, have 12, 13. I just don't think that's realistic. He's going to be better for them at setting the edge and stopping the run, something that Burns really was not that great at. So they got him. But after that, like K'Lavon Chaisson hasn't lived up to that hype coming out of LSU, at least did not in Jacksonville. Now he's here. Todd Wash is a defensive line coach who was the DC with the Jags when he was drafted out of LSU. I don't have the highest of hopes based off of what I've seen so far out of him. DJ Johnson, y'all know how I feel about that. Now it's good to see the progression that he's made, having, I think, a really strong performance on Saturday. And Eku Leota, I don't know how much you're placing off of him based off of just what we've seen so far. So not a good spot for them to be in. Now, if DJ Wooden was healthy, Amari Barno was healthy, they would be in a better spot. But still, I would not look at this as being a premier edge rushing group and being really anything other than one of the bottom 5 edge rushing groups in the NFL. So they need to bring somebody in off the waiver wire. I don't know how much of an impact that player is really going to have, but they got to do something. It can't just be Clowney. It can't just be DJ Johnson, who's unproven. It cannot be Chaisson, who so far has been a bust. I'm sorry to say, but it's just kind of reality of the situation. But he's still in the league, which is a good thing. He's getting an opportunity again, and hopefully it works out for him in Carolina. And then Leota went undrafted last year at Auburn, and he's been nice, but it's not like he's made that much of a splash since that game up in New England. So they're going to have to add someone at edge rusher until Wonnum and Barno come back and really want him. And I don't even know at this point in time what the Panthers can expect out of him, and if he ever makes an impact in Carolina, as they can get rid of him after this season. And based off of how things have trended, hard to see him being a Panther in 2025. Corner, another position I would think that they're going to try to bring somebody in. JC, Troy, Mike Jackson, Chaw, those guys, they're going to be safe on the roster. Dane Jackson still be out for at least 4 weeks. So DiCaprio Boodle, I think he's the guy who's really sitting there who may not make the team. Now, it's good to have someone who can play special teams. Whoever they bring in is going to have to be able to play special teams. I could see them potentially going out there and adding another corner to help them, who can also be a special teamer for them. So that's an area I would think that would make sense as they try to upgrade that position while Dane Jackson is out. Tight end, if there's any concern about Ian Thomas's availability week 1, it's possible that they want to add someone in the interim. Now, you would think that they would want to have somebody that's going to stick around for a decent amount of time, as last year Deshaun Jameson was on the roster the entire time. Same case with Clyde and Charles. Now, they did not keep Calvin Throckmorton around that long. It's possible that they go look at tight end as a spot where they want to add someone as well when looking at things with the waiver wire. And then wide receiver, I don't know how set they are. This is not an impressive group outside of the top 2, and you put that top 2 against any other top 2 in the NFL. I don't think it's top half of the league. I think Deontay Johnson's a good player. I like what Adam Thielen did last year. But, I mean, come on, man. Put this up against what they have in Cincinnati. Put it up against, I guess, what they have elsewhere in the league. I don't know. I don't know. So Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, you trust those guys. Legatte's got to show something whenever he's healthy, and it's going to take a little bit of time. Mingo, don't have the most confidence. And then, Moore and Coker, I don't think either one of those guys are, especially Coker, I don't think he's ready to contribute. I think it's kind of one of the situations where you keep him around and try to develop him. He's not going to gain speed all of a sudden, but it's somebody you want to keep around and for now. And then Moore as a special teamer, it's possible they add somebody else, because I see 2 guys. I really think they need a third. It's possible that Mingo or Legatte can emerge as that third. I just don't see it right now on the roster. And I think that that's something they should be absolutely interested in doing once they see the waiver wire, see who gets cut and who they potentially can add. So those are the positions I think that the Panthers most likely are going to look to add to. Quarterback could be one as well. If they are hell-bent on having that third guy, I still feel like they should keep around Jack Plummer on the practice squad. I saw a guy like Mike White was cut by the Dolphins, and that is a caliber player who has played and started games in the NFL and actually played pretty well, who I wouldn't mind having as that third quarterback if they have to do it. I don't think they need to do it. I don't think they have to do it, but they want to do it. That's the kind of player you take. Not Jack Plummer coming straight out of college out of Louisville, who played college football until he was 24 years old. You want to go out there and get Mike White as that third quarterback to be your emergency third if they want to do it. So that could be another position the Panthers look to address potentially when the waiver wire opens up after 4 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, you all subscribe, follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, where next Wednesday, the weekly Wednesday mailbag is here throughout the entirety of the regular season. All you got to do is either at me or DM me on Twitter at Julian Council to get those questions into me right now. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding in. Tomorrow, we'll react to the 53 men who are going to be on the Panthers roster, at least for now.